Nichole and I met at Dr. Joe Dispenza's week-long retreat in Marco Island, Florida, and just an amazing time. I can say for myself, and I'm sure everybody that was there. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself. I know when we met at the retreat, we were with a whole table of people and just everybody sharing their different experiences and what led them there. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself and how you got into coaching and coaching, especially women and all the women that you've been helping.
Yeah. So it's a pretty intense story for anyone. So, for me, I feel like I never thought of like coaching as that's a like cool business. It's lucrative. I should get into that. Never at all thought that. I was living a life that was like very illegal. I was doing I was transporting drugs across the country. I was in abusive relationships, and literally this was like the lifestyle I grew up in. My parents were always like looking for ways to like get rich quick and like just beat the system, and they thought that's the way that they could, that's like the only way to get by or to get ahead in life. And I grew up being that way, and I found myself in abusive relationship after abusive relationship, and literally it was just like a hell. And I would numb myself with like Xanax, cocaine, alcohol, whatever it is to wake up, and then whatever it is to go to sleep. And finally, it was not by plan, but I got pregnant with my daughter. And I didn't want to be a mom. I could barely take care of myself and manage my life. But the way that things worked out, I ended up deciding to have my daughter, and it literally changed my life. It gave me someone to love and care for that was not myself. And I just knew that if I didn't make changes, she would have similar patterns, the same things. Like I had to basically break through all of these process of like addiction, abuse, violence, crime, whatever. So that was in my heart and in my mind. But at the time, I was still with her father, who was very abusive. So this was back in mid 2000s. And what happened is there was a very violent fight where he threw something at my head, and I had 10 staples in my scalp. And at that point, my daughter was very little, and there was like blood everywhere. I thought like, oh my God, this man is going to kill me if I don't get away from this relationship. So he wouldn't let me leave. And within a period of a week, this is like where my book starts, my memoir, I had decided to give him my Xanax and drug him to escape with my daughter. Wow. And so scary. It was just like, I feel like if he wakes up, he's going to kill me, but I have to risk it to leave. So I did that. I left with some money. We flew out of Vegas and flew back to Philadelphia, where I'm from. We got a little apartment. Within a couple of weeks, I got a call from Las Vegas homicide that he murdered a woman in our home that he was dating. So it was like a holy shift, wake up, like your mom was in an abusive relationship, your aunt was in an abusive relationship, you're in an abusive relationship, like this is how this thing can end. And that was what set me off on my journey to just be normal and find normalcy. Yeah. And I moved to LA from Vegas and just started my life over. I used to go by Nikki, which was my nickname. And then I went there and I was like, I'm Nichole. Like everyone started calling me my government name, and I just went with it. And then I was working as a bartender, and that was like the real job that I knew to have. And I was just burning myself out. And finally, all of this like trauma and pain came up to haunt me, and I got really sick. And what I realized was that the emotions of hiding all of this shame, all of the abuse, all of these things, and pretending they never happened. Like, because I was like, if anyone knows that I just came here from Vegas and I had addiction and I was selling drugs and my daughter's father's in jail for murder, like no one's going to want anything to do with me. So that was my fear. So it all came up to haunt me, in that I ended up getting sick multiple times and like literally having like panic attacks on freeways and like going to the hospital. Like, I was a mess. This is what led me to spirituality. And someone told me to go to this place called Agape, a spiritual center. And I was like, I'm anti-church. It was not my thing.
Yeah.
But I was so desperate, and I didn't want to be on any sort of prescription drug for like anxiety or any of those things.
Mm.
So I went, and the first time I went, while I was having all of this trigger, like, oh my God, they're singing and there's a choir and it's churchy. There was something in it that felt so like medicine for me. And there was something that Michael Beckwith said, Reverend Michael Beckwith, who's the leader or founder or whatever. He said, there's a part of you that cannot be broken, tarnished, or damaged by anything in the past. And I was like,
Wow.
I need to find out more about this. So that was what led me onto this path. And then my own awakening led me to just kind of force me and push me into sharing my own story and helping women. So that's how it went down.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I can only imagine how intense it must have been, like, throughout it all.
Very intense, yes. So it happened, my like shift into all of that and going into like my first meditation retreat was for my 30th birthday. And I'm 38 now. But once I got a little taste of it, I've been going hard.
Yeah.
I'm like going to all the things.
They definitely help
Yeah.
When you were in like all that turbulence, what you mentioned that it was like really the birth of your daughter that kind of helped wake you up, but was there any kind of moments before then that you can kind of look back that helped you continue on, and that slowly led to the awakening and then moving towards California? Like what really kind of helped just go through that transition?
So I would say the only other thing is my one friend who I feel like was my first friend that, I mean, I've had lots of friends, but we would like party together and do all these things together. But my first real friend that like really saw me and would mirror to me like, that you're strong, you matter, like all of these things that seem so basic, the way that I grew up, that wasn't reflected to me.
Yeah.
So that one friendship felt like a safe space. And that just gave me some space to ask different questions, space to feel like I can leave this relationship. I don't need my family necessarily. There's more out there. But I would say that there's a pain that I knew from growing up that way that I just promised that if I ever had kids, I don't want my daughter to feel that way. I don't want her to grow up that way. And even though my daughter has not had the most ideal childhood with the like father that's there and the father that's not whatever, she has a really great childhood. And like we do a lot of work together. And she was at Marco Island with me, living her life at the
She
beach,
was?
at the pool. Yeah. She was at the beach, she was at the pool, she was ordering room service. Like people were asking her what she does because she's 15 and she looks grown. And I'm like, tell them you're a minor to back off.
That's
So
next time she'll have to be in the retreat.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think she's not quite down with it yet, but she's getting there. But the thing is that this is also what she chose to do, and this is what her soul is here to work through. So it's just we're constantly working through the lessons and the layers.
Awesome. What different meditations did you get into, and like when you first were kind of in the spiritual awakening and making the real big shifts? And like you mentioned, a lot of stuff from the past has to come up in order for us to look at it without the emotion, like as Dr. Joe says, be able to look at the memory without the emotion tied to it and its wisdom. How did you really learn all of that and process all of that kind of work, because it definitely is intense?
Yeah. The first meditation that I ever learned was really silent meditation.
Yeah.
And, I eased into it with like these short meditations. The spiritual center I went to had 30-minute meditations before you started. And that was short. And when I first went to my first meditation retreat, it was actually accidental because I didn't know that it was a straight up silent retreat. I went thinking I was giving myself like some meditation, some yoga, clean eating. I saw this pool at this like ranch and I thought that was it. And then when I first got there, I had a bit of anxiety because this was when I mean, I have photos. I was like 90 some pounds. I was not well because of everything that was happening. And I get there and it says in loving silence in the cafeteria. And I was like, okay. And then my friend and I are just chatting it up, eating, and everyone else is just quiet. So then we go into the first sitting and it's introduced and they're like, we're now entering the silence from this point on.
Vipassana meditation retreat?
Yeah, it wasn't that though. It was one of Michael Beckwith's retreats, but it's like a 4-day thing. Yeah. But I just didn't know. So anyway, I had a panic attack that first night because there was I was not used to the silence. Yeah. I would always have TV on. I would distract myself and my thoughts were constant. And that weekend, while I had a panic attack, I got through it onto the other side with no medication. And what I realized was this stuff needs to come up. And I'm scared of the silence. I'm so scared of what's beyond my addiction to these thoughts and feelings and everything. So that was like the happening. But then I went to 2 meditation retreats, silent retreats a year for 6 years. So, I mean, I was very like, I'm going to all the things. I started doing spiritual practitioner courses. So, I mean, once I got it and I knew it was helping, I was like, let me keep giving myself this because it works.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. How did it eventually turn into now the business that you run? And I'd love to kind of transition and hear like that, how it turned into how you're helping women. You have the podcast, you have the different courses. And really I'm interested how all of that, how all of your very unique experiences helped you create this framework of which you're helping, many, many women.
Sure. So the first, interestingly enough, at another silent retreat, same kind of silent retreat, I had a thing that came through. I was actually asking for answers on my work at the time, which was in finance. And I was like, how can I hit this award and like get this goal and like whatever significant stuff I wanted in my head. And there's this like clear, like I heard it and it said, help women, share your story, everything will be taken care of. And at the time, people in LA didn't know about any of this stuff. So it was very scary for me to share, but it took about 8 months and everything in my life started falling apart and like my business, and I couldn't get myself to do it. It wasn't like lighting me up. And I just felt this pull to come out and share my story. So I did. And there's like a coming out video on YouTube and I shared, and it was so scary because I was like, I feel like people are going to be like, wow, Nichole's been lying to me for all this time, or like, she's a mess. I don't want her in my life. But it was actually the opposite. So what I learned was that the things I hated about myself and judged myself for and shamed myself for, people came closer when I embraced it and shared it from love. So that was a big opening. That was October 1st, 2015. And since my first way of starting out my business was just helping women in terms of liberation. I was in absolute hell. I was in absolute like emotional turmoil. And I know that there's more liberation for you. So I would just share that. And then as I kept going, I started going to Tony Robbins retreats. I was doing everything that I felt a nudge to do. I would do it. And at the time I was actually really financially poor too, because my business was starting and that's where I was. So I had a really bad financial period. And then the next year I hit $200,000 in my business. So then I started teaching women about money, and I really understood the pain of what women will do when they don't have money, how much stress it causes, what it does to relationships. It makes us stay in relationships that are toxic. And I just started realizing, like, I want to teach women about money. So that's why now everything I teach is like miracles. And it's not like a whimsical, like miracle thing. It's like, let go of logic and everything that's been to create in the infinite unknown in the miracle realm. So now I have the courses, the podcast, and there's still a little edge. Like, I believe that I can listen to Drake and that I can wear all black and I can curse and I can still be very deeply devoted to my spiritual practice. So it's like a very grounded, modern spiritual teachings.
Yeah, no, I like it. It reminds me when at the retreat, Dr. Joe was talking about how, like, anybody can really get into this. And he's talking how there's just some regular woman is getting into the quantum field, whereas other people are like doing some tradition or some unique way from a religion and how they're supposed to pray.
Like praying to the east, praying to the west, like that part cracked me up because I was like, I've actually bought into that, and it was a challenge for me when I would see all these women showing up and they would have like flower crowns and they're wearing all white, which I'm down with it. But it's just like, for me to live in that way all the time feels inauthentic to the way that I feel called to express. So yeah, I feel like
meaning. It's like those traditions or ways, it's like it adds meaning to it, but it's not the only way.
Yeah, and we get to play. That's why I love Dr. Joe, because he's like, carnivores will be in high gamma. Like, and I'm like, okay, like it gives me hope. You know, we can be ourselves and still access those parts of us. So yeah.
What are the what's the process with like helping a woman adopt more of a and it not just adopt but and embody more of a empowering belief about money, because it's like, you know, it is very challenging. Like I'm sure it may have been for yourself as well, what coming from not just your own memories and experiences with money, but just the whole genealogy of that you were mentioning, and really beginning to adopt this new belief, you know, that I don't know, money is, you know, an exchange of energy rather than you know, safety or whatever.
I mean, and it's the same really. I mean, I feel like I'm not a man, but men also, like we can say, it's just in general too, because you know, I have even men that write me and they're like, I do your $10,000 a month meditation. And I'm like, cool. Like, but when I work with women, I just love that we can go deep in like motherhood, sisterhood, all the things. So when I speak this, just know for any man that's listening, like you can also
I appreciate
resonate.
that.
Yeah. For me, what I realized with money is that in general, I just didn't feel safe. And I say for women specifically, rather than thinking and growing rich, sometimes it's dropping into feeling and growing rich. And when our heart is open, when we feel safe, when we feel like there's nothing wrong with us, when we feel like we are connected to our divinity, which is like our one of oneness, and we know that our voice matters, our purpose matters, our actions matter, and like we are here for a reason, we relate differently to like scarcity, lack in general. And there's like this beautiful paradox of money and safety, which is like when you let go of needing it and recognize that you're fine, it's easier to get, right?
It just kind of flows in and out so much more effortlessly.
Yeah, and like just noticing your body and safety. So like I do this work with women where I have them close their eyes and just start to feel like I'll start talking about things when it's like about their money or their bank account or their next paycheck, and noticing where in their body is it communicating. Like, is it tensing? Is it like contracting? Or is it, you know, feeling light and exciting? And what we find is like a lot of women start feeling tight. Their throats get tight, their chest gets tight, their belly gets tight.
When they envision actually money coming in?
Or like, no, when they envision like checking their bank account. Or thinking about an unexpected bill coming. So it's really like just retraining our body to feel safe and know that we are, what I say, we're connected to true source and supply. It's not your boss. It's not a client. It's not a particular business. Like source and supply is here for all of us. And we have to be willing to open up and say we have infinite income sources and money can come in unexpected ways. So that's like where the miracle thing pops in, because a lot of people, I ask them a trick question and I say, how many income sources do you have? And they're like, 4, 2, whatever. I'm like, no, it's infinite.
Oh, infinite.
No, it's infinite, because think about it. And when we start to expect it as infinite,
one source, but it comes through infinite.
One true source. But the average person will say, well, I have my job, I have a side hustle, I have an income property, right? Versus like money shows up in unexpected ways when you just expect, and the expectation, the energetic standard is I'm supported at all times. It's a really big reframing. So like for me, I share a story of one time I went to India and I really couldn't afford to go to India, and I used my rent money and I was like, everything worked out, But when I got home, I was in integration and I was like, damn, everything's due and this sucks. And I went behind, I was like waiting for my daughter, and I went behind McDonald's parking lot in my car. And I just did an affirmative prayer, which is like getting into a prayerful space, affirming the truth and declaring like the highest truth over your life.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, I know that the money's here. I know that it's happening. I know that it's real. I know that it's already here in my space and I'm open to receive it. Like, show me how. Within literally like 15 minutes, I'm driving down the street. I see a sign for open house. I see it. I was like, oh my God, that's my friend's thing. I go, turn left, see him at the house. I pull up there and he was like, how is India? What's going on in your business? I was like, oh, this is all great, but this is what's happening. I really put myself out. And he's like us, which is like a miracle kind of thinker. He was like, let me loan you some money because I believe in what you're doing. Literally, he Zelled me $10,000. And then
I haven't heard of a transaction like that.
yeah, I mean, like, it was crazy. So I was like, I thank him in my book. He's like one of my like earth angels. And it's so cool because like I paid him back in a way because he ended up like marrying. I introduced him to my friend and now they're married and all this stuff. So I'm like, you see how things just
Amazing. So it's like you kind of, sorry to jump in, but it's kind of like, how do you help install a client or just anybody you're teaching? Like for me in this kind of case, because I'm definitely learning and wanting to adopt more of these beliefs, because like I kind of mentioned in the question,
yeah,
it's like you have it intellectually, but it takes a little bit of time to really kind of get in the groove, kind of thing. Not, or maybe not time, but however embossed that old belief or pattern was. But how like in that situation you just shared, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to when it doesn't look like you have the physical amount there or in the bank account. How do you really make that jump per se? Because we also don't necessarily want to always be relying on those miracles.
No, definitely. Like, I don't suggest living in that space, but that was definitely part of my quantum leaping journey, right? It's like now thinking about doing any of that feels very stressful, but also I have different resources now. If I really wanted to do something and I didn't have the cash, I could do a business loan. There's a lot of things that I could do differently now than when I first started my business and was just going on my journey. But the whole premise of this is that if spirit is asking you to do something and you know it's for the betterment of your life and it's going to overflow and benefit your community, your family, your household, so on, and your lineage, like, you must do it and you must take the leap. And like, you'll never know the net unless you leap. So like, people want to see the net before they take a leap and the net isn't always there. So whether it's for you where you're going on like for me, it was like some $15,000 India retreat, which was outrageous, but it was like, I knew that it was going to be something for me. So it could be anyone listening that's just like, I want to bring my income up by, I want to double my income in 2021. We have to start asking a bigger question and expecting a bigger result. And one of the things I do when you say like taking it beyond like theory and going into like the embodiment of it is, here, we can even do this now. I do this thing, and I also, this is on my $10,000 a month meditation. It's free. It's on my Instagram. If you close your eyes and if you just think about the homes, think about the homes within your city or town. And just relax your body, like literally take some breaths, settle your body down. And as your body settles down, I want you to just scan and think about the homes in your area. And if you think about these homes, I want you to think about the people inside these homes. I want you to think about their bank accounts, their investment accounts, retirement accounts, the equity in their homes, that there's so much money. There's so much money. And this money is in constant circulation. It's being circulated digitally. People are buying things on Amazon. People are trading stocks. People are investing in all sorts of things. Money is coming into accounts because people are getting paid. There's no less money because there's a pandemic. It's just trading different hands. And as you just zoom out now from your city and go through your whole country. If you zoom out and you hold this perspective of your entire country and all the money in all the bank accounts and all the investment accounts, the mutual funds, the brokerage accounts, in all of the retirement accounts, the 401ks, the IRAs, the 403bs, and then moving into how much money is being circulated, how many millions are being spent on Amazon right as we do this meditation. There's so much money here for all of us. The question is, how do I get myself involved in this circulation and exchange? And trust that I am also worthy and deserving of this receiving. So let's open our eyes again. Can you connect to that visual that quick? Because like for me, it's just, you know?
It's actually really cool. By the way, I love that question. And it was very well guided. Thanks for doing that. First of all, I'll answer that. It was very visual because I've done a similar meditation before, and guided one, when it's like that, like starting small, like with yourself, and then the houses and the neighborhood. And rather than visualizing the money, it was more like the peace and just wholeness, and kind of sending that to everyone or everything you may come across. And this was just an amazing adaptation of that, with just, you know, seeing the different flow of money, and then how can I be in that is,
yes.
I really like that.
Yeah, so like literally we can do it with anything, but what we're doing is just opening up and broadening our perspective to what's real. Because I know even for me as an entrepreneur, maybe you've done this in your life somewhere, you know, in some way. When you have an idea or you have a product or a service, you tend to think about just the people that are in your mind's eye. So you're like, but people don't have the money for this, or this is a lot of money, or people aren't going to buy this, or everyone's already bought it from me. Like you have these like BS limiting little points of view.
You're speaking right to me right now.
Okay, I've been there. Yes, and where my clients are like that too. They're like, but I already sold this to my community. It's like one post can get us hundreds more people following us. One video can get 10 more people to buy your thing. Like it's just living in that bigger perspective, and also understanding that money is always exchanging. So for me, Grant Cardone says this, and Grant Cardone doesn't show up as a spiritual teacher in any way, but I love the way he talks about money. And, you know, I used to have guilt around money because I was doing all the spiritual work, and I used to make money doing bad things. So quote unquote. So because of that, I had this like shame around money, and I had to be like, money is needed for me to live my fullest, most expressive, impactful life. And because of that, I have to be okay with money. And Grant Cardone says, other people have your money, go get it. And I was like,
that's an interesting perspective.
It's an interesting perspective, because if you think about that, we all do have money, and it's like, we're not going to take it from anyone. But I know I just bought something on Amazon today. I bought from Whole Foods last night, like constantly circulation. Somebody bought my program yesterday. So it's like, there's constant circulation, but we have to get out of the idea that circulation has stopped or it's not available for you.
It's almost interesting in, you know, growing up, we learn about charity and, you know, giving and donating.
Yeah.
It's almost like with these more kind of abundant beliefs, empowering beliefs, and like you're sharing with money, it's like, it's not just giving towards a charitable organization. Of course, that's a higher form, you could say, but it's like just the matter of exchange. It's just like participating or joining the kind of collective and giving and receiving.
Yeah, the circulation. I mean, this is our economy. I am big on giving back, but we can be generous with more than money.
Yeah.
And
sure. It's material. It's the lowest.
Yeah, like it's just like we're always in exchange of currency, whether it's a compliment, whether it's like, how can I help you? Can I share this video? Can I share this podcast? If it's somebody reaching out to me and letting me know, you know, I've been watching what you're doing and I really enjoy it, and that gives me a boost, then I go make a video. It's all currency. But we have to really make peace with the idea of I love money not being a bad thing.
Yeah.
For us to make more money. So that's what I have an event called Harmonious Hustle. And first day is all like meditation, deep work. Like we're going deep. Day 2 is all about money and growing that. And I say, like, say I love money, and notice if you have a kickback. Notice if you feel like, oh, that's kind of bad, that's kind of taboo, and make peace with it. And the more you make peace with it, understand, like, the more money you have, the more good you'll do.
I like that a lot. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, and thanks for sharing that with me. Thanks
Yeah,
for
of
exchanging this.
course. Thank you for exchanging this with me. I'm enjoying it too. Like, we're having this beautiful
Yeah.
circulation. But you know what? I say this with when I teach my meditations, my dog Pablo barks sometimes, and I let him, because here's why. I say that dog and that bark and that noise represents all the distractions in your life.
It was amazing.
And if we can't hold the intention, and there's this place called BioCybernaut, and from what I hear, you go there and you meditate, and they try to keep you in those, like, in those great brain waves, right? But they play loud, crazy things in your ear, apparently. And so, like, it trains you to be able to hold those states while in a state of noisy distraction. So I tell my ladies, I'm like, oh, this is perfect training for you.
We'll have to work up maybe a couple more silent retreats until maybe a couple more dispensas, and then and
Yeah,
then
I'm ready to go back.
honestly, that turned into a lot more awesome. I didn't of course I can't plan exactly what we're talking about, so I really just appreciate and really received all that was kind of just shared, especially about the different money and then the beliefs around it.
Yeah.
I'd love to turn a little bit more towards, I know you have a memoir of which you shared a lot of what you shared today, and your podcast, and we spoke a lot about meditation and how much it helped us, but I'd love to hear a little bit how everybody can learn more or read more about you, and what you're up to. And again, I just really appreciate this conversation.
Me too. So let me just tell you all, I love to share on Instagram. So everything that I talk about, it's all in my Instagram bio link. And the $10,000 meditation, try it. You can use it for 100,000. I recently had a $100,000 month, and it's like the same process. So fill in the blank of your number. There's that. And then I have a sleep meditation called Abundant Dreams. I have some morning activations. All of those things are just resources for you to begin to see a wider perspective of what's available for you, and to see who you really are. That's what I like to say. In my memoir is like a juicy read. It reads obviously like a fiction, because some of the stuff sounds really unbelievable, but it's real. And I get feedback from women and also men in the Amazon reviews and all that they read this book in like 2 days, but it's a page turner. But what it shows you is that the resiliency of a human spirit. So I don't care what you're going through right now. If there's a diagnosis, if you've lost a job, if you are going bankrupt, wherever you're at, you can turn it around. There's so much more for you. And that book really demonstrates the richness of the dark, perceived as dark moments in life that initiate us into our highest self. So it's inspiring, because obviously it leads at where I am now, which is, I feel like, in a really great place. But, as you read the book, you would never think that woman in the first 100 pages of the book would ever be getting paid so much to change other people's lives. But that's what's possible for us when we say yes to the higher calling.
I love it. I heard also one of the YouTube talks you were giving, or not a YouTube talk, but it was on YouTube. And you said something that really caught my attention, is love what you want to disappear. You want something that you want to disappear, or like to get out of your life, or to change.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's true, because if we hate it, we resist it. If we think it's bad, we push, like, we just amplify it even more.
Like,
So there's just so many,
all that money stuff we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, so even for me, some people, if you have shame around your debt, if you have shame around not making enough, if you have shame around your family's history with money. I know for me, I had a foreclosure, I had crimes, I had a murder that was at my house. I mean, if there's a shame list, I checked them all off. And in that book, I was kidnapped. I mean, there were so many things that happened that I labeled myself as not worthy of anything good. And then I had an awakening, which was, there's a part of each and every one of us that is so perfect, so whole, so complete, that it is so necessary. And that's what makes us, there's no such thing as a follower. you know, like this thing that's happening in social media where this person's so important and all of us are down here. No, some of us are just waking up to how special and rare we really are. And that's what it's about.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much, Nichole. Nichole Sylvester on Instagram, right? And then here's
Yes.
the links.
Nichole with an H. So Nichole, because everyone spells it without the H. And Miracle Minded is my podcast, so check it out. We talk about all things money, business, living your best life, and really just waking up to who you are and what you're really made of.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and meeting me. I'm so happy we crossed paths out of the thousands of people there. I know that'll probably not be something somebody wants to hear during the time of COVID. It's such a pleasure to have met you and now to speak with you and learn from you.
You too, Solomon.
Take care. Happy holidays.
You too.